everybody, this is Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases, but also as time passes I've been covering other cases such as the Staircase or OJ and many wrongful convictions of youth. I go over the documents, the photos, the videos, anything case related, so stay tuned because I have many more videos just like the one you're about to see. Hello everybody, how you doing today? We're here today to talk about the hood latch. We're going to talk about the color of the swab. We're going to talk about the amount of DNA found on the hood latch. We're going to just go through all the issues with it. Some of you may remember what was said in MAM2 about it. If not, this will go. This you'll be seeing basically pages from the affidavit filed by Zellner's expert in her original 1,200-page motion when she filed that in 2017. So this is going to be Dr. Carl Reich's affidavit, essentially, where he explains what he believes is going on with the hood latch swab and the hood latch itself, and then with the DNA and the amounts and their attempts to recreate those results that the Madison Crime Lab observed in 2005 or 2006. They go through that, and then he goes through the coloration on it. So I was not able to find any pictures of the hood latch swabs myself, but it is reported that they were yellowish in color. So we'll go ahead and get into it right now. We're going to first move into Carl Reich's basically qualifications. Why should we be listening to what Carl Reich says? How qualified is he? Well, like all of Zellner's experts, he's one of the leaders in his field. So here we'll go ahead and get into his qualifications right now. I, Dr. Carl Reich, under oath and under penalty of perjury, state that I am a DNA analyst and professional molecular biologist. I have a doctorate in molecular biology and am a chief scientific officer of Independent Forensics of Illinois. Independent Forensics Laboratory adheres to the FBI's quality assurance standards for molecular biology, human genetics, and forensic DNA testing laboratories. Independent Forensics is accredited by ANSI, ASQ, National Accreditation Board, the American Association of Blood Banks, the New York State Department of Health for genetic identity and forensic DNA testing. Independent Forensics is the only such laboratory in Illinois. Okay, so those are Carl Reich's qualifications. Now we're going to go into where the affidavit explains exactly what's going on with the hood latch, the DNA amounts, the trial that they conducted to try to recreate what the results that they had in Madison Crime Lab, basically. So they do a trial to try to recreate that. They aren't able to. And here's where they're going to go through all the results of that, and it's quite interesting. It's extremely interesting because it's just not really possible to believe that Stephen somehow miraculously leaves 1.9 nanograms, nearly 2 full nanograms, okay, just shy of 2 full nanograms, when they can't even get somebody to leave 1/10 of a nanogram on this hood latch. So, well, here we go. We'll go into that now, and we'll come on back. It is well documented that DNA was isolated from the listed item, and this DNA generated a DNA profile of the defendant. The process of obtaining a DNA profile from a biological sample includes an obligatory step to estimate the amount of recovered DNA. This step is called DNA quantification. The current method of DNA quantification uses a technique, quantitative PCR, or qPCR, a variant of the polymerase chain reaction. The documentation from the Wisconsin Department of Justice State Crime Laboratory, Madison, reveals that 1.9 nanograms of human DNA was recovered from the listed sample. At trial, it was claimed that the defendant's DNA on the listed item of evidence was deposited from sweaty fingers. This is, of course, pure speculation, as there is no forensic test for the presence of sweat. Nonetheless, the DNA that generated the profile came from somewhere. In an attempt to replicate the findings reported by the Wisconsin Department of Justice State Crime Laboratory, Madison, our laboratory performed a series of experiments on a vehicle identical to that impounded by law enforcement in this case. Volunteers were enlisted to open the car hood of this surrogate vehicle using the engine compartment hood latch, the latch that was then swabbed, and a quantity of DNA recovered estimated by qPCR, the current method used by the Wisconsin State Forensic DNA Laboratory, Madison. This experimental test was repeated 15 times. The hood latch was, of course, cleaned after each round and subsequent opening. The results of this test series is instructive. In 11 of the 15 replicates, no detectable DNA was recovered from the hood latch. In other words, the amount of DNA recovered after swabbing the hood latch used to open the vehicle was less than the minimum detection threshold of the qPCR method, less than 0.005 nanograms. In 4 of the replicates, quantifiable DNA was recovered with the following results: a 0.05 nanograms, a 0.09 nanograms. Hey, that one almost got to 0.1, 0.06 nanograms, and 0.07 nanograms, which is important because the crime lab claims they got 1.9 nanograms from it. So, in other words, in almost 3/4 of the hood opening trials, no measurable DNA was left behind by the individual who opened the hood. Put another way, even when DNA was left on the hood latch after opening the hood, the amount of DNA recovered was between 20 and 35 times less than that was recovered from the item identified as M05-2467 #ID, which is the swab of the hood latch. To put it yet another way, the Madison Laboratory recovered from 6 to 7 times more DNA than all of the DNA recovered from all 15 hood openings combined. Given the experimental results in both the fact the body fluid detection data and the DNA recovery data from the hood latch opening trials, the question of what sample M05-2467's #ID really might be becomes a subject for investigation. Okay, this is Dr. Reich summing up what their testing was, basically what it boils down to. For a variety of reasons, the forensic evidence in Wisconsin versus Avery is being seriously scrutinized and re-examined. This includes the forensic DNA analysis conducted by the Wisconsin Department of Justice State Crime Laboratory, Madison. On item M05-2467 #ID, the data obtained from the body fluid identification testing, from DNA quantification, and from DNA profile, and from attempts at replicating the sample in question are contradictory. The data show an unacceptable DNA profile from a sample with no indication of a body fluid, a robust amount of DNA recovered from the sample, and yet attempts to replicate this finding failing repeatedly. These facts prompt a reevaluation of this evidence. These facts prompt a reevaluation of this evidence. Yeah, that sounds about right to me too. Because, seriously, when you only had 4 out of 15 leave measurable DNA, and all 4 of those are under 1/10 of a nanogram. Okay? Under 1/10 of a nanogram. How are we supposed to believe that somehow, some way, by some miracle, that Steven somehow leaves 1.9 nanograms? How is that possible? And that's before we get into what we're about to get into. And that is the color of the swab. And what it looked like. And what's wrong with that. Right? So, we're going to go ahead and move into that now. We're going to look into where Carl Reich points out that the color of the swab is off. And then I'm going to show you some swabs that were couple that were made by subscriber Marissa S, and 4 more that were created by fellow YouTuber Ali Apperson. I encourage you guys to go. She was busy today. She uploaded a couple videos, so go check those out. One of those is her own hood latch swab video where she's doing some testing and doing hood latch swabs. I encourage you to go check that out, but I'll show you guys the pictures of that here as well. And this is a big point. And this has been getting glossed over by Judge Sukowicz, by the people who believe Stephen Avery are guilty, Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are guilty. This is something that's just been being ignored, but it's significant. How in the world are we supposed to believe that Stephen Avery left 1.9 nanograms when experiments and at trying to recreate it can't even get over 1/10 of a nanogram? So yeah. So let's move on to the next bit about the coloration on the swab. So Dr. Wright continues raising his concerns. The chain of custody and disposition of the 2 groin swabs taken from the defendant during his arrest is neither complete, accurate, or transparent. Such a sample, relabeled as taken from the hood latch of the victim's vehicle, would satisfy all of the observed facts. Lack of body fluid, sufficient amount of DNA for a profile that would link the defendant to the victim without all of the messy and complicated effort of actually depositing DNA on a greasy and grimed engine compartment metal latch. The convenience of this explanation and the fact that it accounts for the physical findings observed from the analysis of item M05-2467 #ID does not prove evidence tampering, but more precisely evidence reassignment. But this hypothesis is a far better fit to the data, experimental trials, and need of the investigation for clear and convincing evidence of a link between the defendant and the victim's vehicle. A swab, truly taken from the engine compartment hood latch, should have been covered in black engine grime and grease, as anyone who has ever had to open a hood of a high-mileage vehicle can attest. The swab batting in question was merely very lightly discolored, another fact that does not fit with the claimed origin of this sample. Okay, so these are the swabs that were made by Ali Apperson. As we can all see, that these swabs are very black or grayish, if anything. Certainly, you don't see any yellowing or yellowish color, right? You don't see anything slightly yellowish or anything like that, right? So, I'll leave a link to Ali's hood latch swab video in the information below for you, if you want to go check that out. And then now we're going to show you one of my subscribers, Marissa S. We're going to show you her hood latch swabs. Also, want to point out another thing Ali did with these is she actually ran all of them underwater. So she turned on the tap and then put these under the water after she had collected them and stuff. And that's the coloration after being diluted in water. So I just thought that was also interesting and should be noted. So these are the swabs collected by the lovely Marissa S. Subscriber on my channel here. And the thing is here, the top one, she got that one wet when she went out to collect. The bottom one, she left dry and swabbed dry. Now, another thing to point out, when she did this, it was 7 degrees outside. It was 7 degrees. She translated that into 14 degrees Celsius for all of our international supporters. So it was wicked cold. And you would think that even the gunk on the metal of that engine, or on that hood latch and all around that engine, would have been frozen as well. But she swabbed it wet on top, dry on bottom. No matter what, you still see black or gray or dark gray. You certainly do not see any hint of yellow. All right, everybody. So that's pretty much everything you need to know, the pertinent information when it comes to the hood latch. And what's going on with the hood latch, what's going on with the DNA on the hood latch, the coloring of the swab, obviously, the thing that's very important is the fact that they took 2 groin swabs from Stephen when they arrested him, which they said, oh no, we can't take these, the warrant doesn't allow us. So they just threw them in a biohazard can. Wink, wink, right? Yeah. That's why there's slightly yellowing on the swab that they analyzed. Not because it came from underneath the hood, because you've seen clearly what it looks like coming from under a hood. It doesn't look yellow in any way, shape, or form. It's black and gray, right? So this is the premiere to set up tomorrow night's live discussion, where we go into the hood latch and we talk about that DNA, and we talk about how this experiment done by Dr. Reich, did not prove any kind of results, anything near what Stephen Avery supposedly left on that hood latch. We know that it's not any of the 4 main bodily fluids, which pretty much leaves epithelial cells as the source. So it's, there's plenty to talk about, I think, here. So hope you guys enjoyed this premiere tonight. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.